It's been nearly 20 years since TV producer Ben Silverman sat down Ricky Gervais to pitch the idea of adapting the hit British television show The Office for American screens. Now, to celebrate the 15th birthday of the American version, An Oral History of The Office is debuting July 14th on Spotify, hosted and executive produced by our favorite accountant and star of The Office, Brian Baumgartner. And here to tell us all about it is Brian, aka Kevin Malone himself. Brian, great to have you with me here today. I mean, this show, The Office, has been talked about in so many platforms, picked apart in so many ways. What are the untold parts of The Office's history that you wanted to uncover with this podcast?
You know, I mean, part of it was an exploration, starting with Ben, putting this together and wanting to tell our story, Ben Silverman, that is, because The Office now, 7 years since we've filmed anything, is arguably, across any metric, the most watched show in television today. And we wanted to look at why. That is, like, why does this show that's basically about middle-aged office workers for the most part, why is it resonating now with young people, 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old? Like, what is it about the show that has resonated with people today, and its timelessness, and really what happened to set the show up, to cast the show, to bring in the team? What decisions were made from the very beginning that potentially lead to why people why really the show is bigger now than it was when it was on NBC on Thursday nights.
Yeah, and Brian, one of those decisions I imagine you had to make was, do you want the show to mimic the British version, or do you want it to be unique with character storylines? What was some of the decision-making process around that in the beginning?
The British version is, it's darker, and it has kind of a specific British aesthetic. And so they knew from the beginning that Kevin Riley, who was the head of NBC at the time, says that Greg Daniels pitched him, it's the British show, but with 10% more heart. So that there's something about the show and the characters intentionally from the very beginning that made you want to fall in love with them, made you want to spend time with them. And ultimately, from a network TV, American, broadcast perspective, they're happy that it ran for 200 episodes. They weren't going to be happy if it ran for 12, like in Britain.
And you all didn't always know it was going to be a success in America either. I listened to Jenna and Angela's podcast, Office Ladies, and I understand there was a lot of skepticism, maybe hesitation from the team. When did that skepticism kind of turn into confidence, where you realized, this is a hit, this is going to be a hit for many years?
I'm really glad you asked that question. We have a whole episode based on that, basically what happened in season 2. Now if you're a young fan, or if you became a fan on Netflix, you're not aware that, it was on NBC. There were only 6 episodes. And going into the second season, it was only given 6 more episodes. And we wrapped those, the second season, 6 episodes in the summer. We went away because they hadn't started airing yet, and we thought, well, that was fun. We got to do 12. Like, we'll probably never see each other again. But what happened that season, there were a number of things that happened that we look at, and that sort of culminated in, we look culturally too. Like, the iPod started, and The Office was one of the first shows that could be downloaded on the iPod, and simultaneously it was Christmas time, so people were getting iPods, and the Christmas episode of The Office, kind of followed by Steve Carell's hugely unexpected win at the Golden Globe, really started to turn it around in season 2. And then at the end of that season, we won the Emmy, and we knew we were going to be around for a while.
And Brian, to your point, it feels like the show is back at the height of its popularity with increased access on streaming platforms. But I also wonder, the future of the workplace is going to be vastly different in a post-pandemic world. No more open layouts, maybe no more shared kitchens in the way that you guys have on the show. Do you think there might be even more of a resurgence in popularity, as this show represents this artifact of how the workplace used to be and might not be anymore going forward?
Some people discuss that actually in the podcast, that not because most of the interviews were done shortly before the pandemic. We continued to have to do a lot of the work after, but one of the things that is crazy now in 2020 to look at is that there is potentially some nostalgia about what it would be like to work in a small office, that you actually have a health plan, that there is a community that exists there, in Scranton, and the show was kind of about the comedy about these guys working in a clearly dying industry. But now I think someone postulated that that potentially one of the reasons that is so popular today is there is some nostalgia about it, and that would only continue if we're forced to be sitting down and talking like this for the rest of our lives.
Brian, very quickly, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know there's been a spin-off web series, Among the Accountants. If Kevin had his own spin-off, what would it be?
Well, it happened in just the last episode. So there was a lot of Kevin as an accountant before, but that Kevin was able to start his own bar in the finale of the episode. I have great hopes that he is still there tending bar.
I would absolutely watch that. Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck with everything. That's actor, executive producer, and host of An Oral History of The Office, Brian Baumgartner.